There are a few things you'll want to consider when choosing your shoes. If you're trying a new style of shoe, make sure to consider what changes your body will be making in order to accommodate the new features, and make sure to allow time for your feet and body to acclimate to them. Depending on how drastic the changes are, this could take several weeks. These are the 10 things to consider when choosing a new shoe. 1. Your weight. Heavier body types will want to consider shock absorption features and also consider if the increased weight will affect the life of the shoe. Always calculate the amount of mileage on your shoe to determine the age of the shoe, rather than how it looks. Many times the midsole is what fails first, and that's hard, if impossible, to see. The more weight the shoe has to deal with, the shorter the lifespan. Discuss the issue with a professional running, walking shoe salesperson to see how long the shoe you are buying will last. 2. The type of activity you are doing. Longer distance walks will transmit high levels of shock for long periods of time and benefit from added cushion features and lighter shoes. Faster, shorter walks can benefit from a less cushioned shoe. The thinner the midsole, the more ground feedback you will have, versus the thicker the midsole, the less ground feedback and the more floaty your walk. Each have pros and cons. Know how either will affect you before purchasing. 3. Surfaces. The outer sole is composed of not only different types of rubber for wear purposes, but also for grip. Shoes worn on a treadmill will rarely deal with water puddles, loose gravel, or sharp rocks and broken glass. Make sure the shoe's outer surface matches the needs that a majority of your walk is done on. If you walk on different surfaces, on different walks, consider getting shoes for each surface to avoid risk of injury. 4. Previous history. Have you had or currently having problems with your walk? If you've had foot, knee, hip, or back pain issues, are a known pronator or prone to shin splints, then chances are very high that they will return. It's better not to rely on the shoe to fix these problems. A good chiropractic exam of the lower kinetic chain will help uncover the problem. Once it is identified and resolved, then a shoe can be used to support the changes. 5. Check for defects. Now, some shoes purposefully change the heel counter, but most will have a straight heel counter. If it's not, then it might just be a defective shoe. I know, most have never thought about it, but just like anything else, a shoe could have been assembled poorly. Poorly assembled shoes are usually found and rejected by the manufacturer before distribution, and then sold to online vendors who sell name brands for less on the internet. Something to think about if you're thinking of buying cheaper shoes on the internet or eBay to avoid the shoe store prices. 6. Time of day. Your feet swell as the day progresses due to a variety of reasons like pooling blood and swelling that can occur from heat. Fluids can accumulate in the feet after a full day of walking, running, and sitting and standing. Make sure that you are paying attention to the weather, the time of day, and health of your feet and ankles when fitting a shoe so that you don't end up with a shoe that is improperly fit and results in discomfort, restriction, and blisters. 7. The longest toe. Not everyone's longest toe is their first toe. Make sure that when you check the length of the shoe that you are weight bearing on that foot. Press down on the space between the top of the longest toe to the top of the shoe. There should be about a ½ inch of space. A Branix device can help you determine the right size shoe. It's that thing you put your foot in at the shoe store. Number 8. Shoe width. The width of the shoe accommodates the toe box, where your toes are. The toe box should fit snugly, like Goldilocks in the Three Bears. Not too big, where your foot wanders in the shoe. Not too small, where your foot's natural mechanics are limited and foot function compromised. But rather, it should fit just right. Slightly snug, but the toes in the foot can still move enough to be comfortable and still control the shoe. Number 9. Got orthotics? For those who are benefiting from the use of an orthotic, always place the custom orthotic in the shoe when you are trying it on to make sure that it can be properly received by the shoe, that there's still room for your foot, and that the foot doesn't feel like it's going to slip or rub on the back of the heel. Make sure that you don't double dip by placing an orthotic into a shoe that also has some sort of correction, like an anti-pronation or stability shoe. That's like wearing 2 pairs of prescription glasses at the same time. More is not better and will lead to problems. 10. Durability. When should you switch out that shoe? Many think that it's when there are more holes on the upper than shoelace holes. Some think it's when the outsole is sufficiently worn out. While those are good reasons to change out a shoe, an even more important reason is when the midsole cushioning fails. The EVA foam is like a sponge, full of air bubbles. Initially, these air bubbles are resilient and the ride is fine. But as the EVA ages and the bubbles get crushed, it eventually loses its balance and support, creating areas that are depressed and sunken in. These areas can cause stress to the foot and lead to foot dysfunction and discomfort. Most will notice their feet are getting sorer with their runs as the shoe ages. This is the midsole failing and stressing their feet. Shoe life averages 300 to 500 miles or 3 to 6 months, with about 50% of the cushioning gone by 400 miles. Yes, there's also a time limit on the EVA. It oxidizes over time, and that means it gets harder with time. Have you ever put on an old pair of shoes that you haven't worn in a year or so? They tend to be stiff. That's the EVA aging. Stiff shoes cause the foot to work extra hard, leading to early fatigue and a possible source of injury. Those are the 10 things to consider when purchasing a shoe. Making sure that the shoes you buy are actually going to do what you think they are going to do, it will be time well spent.